Welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Lens. This is Jake, and I'm flying solo today. But today we're excited because we are getting to talk to my favorite distiller. Yes, we talk about Scott's all the time in Heaven Hill, but today we get to talk about mine. And we are joined by two great guests from High West Distillery. We have Holly Booth, beverage manager, and Tara Lindley, sensory, new product manager. And I'm excited to chat with you all because if there's an opportunity to talk High West, I always bring it up. So I'm glad I now have some professionals to talk High West with today. So how are you all doing this afternoon?
Doing great. Thank you. Yourself?
Oh, it's 70 in November. I'm not complaining. I heard from Holly, though, it's snowing there.
It is.
It absolutely is.
Yeah. Is it up there too? Tara and I are in actually both of our kind of locations. So
okay.
Where our
How far is Wine Ship from Park City?
Maybe 20-ish minutes.
Okay.
Yep.
That's not bad. I've yet to go to Wine Ship. That's on the bucket list of things to do is to head out there. But love.
It's a special place.
Oh yeah, but so is the saloon. I mean, the saloon is a special place. Like if you're going to be in Park City and if you don't go to the saloon, you've done yourself a disservice.
I don't disagree with you, but I'm certainly biased. I'm sure Tara shares the same opinion. But I think I think the great thing about all of our locations is they're all just a little bit different. And I think going out to the distillery in Wine Ship is so lovely because it sits on this beautiful ranch and you do feel like you're kind of apart from the world and you get to kind of immerse yourself in whiskey. And I think certainly that's intentional. But it's hard to beat the views out there. If you're partial to this part of the world and you enjoy kind of those sweeping Western landscapes, it certainly features those, as well as all of Tara's counterparts in production and all the hard work that they do there. It's really a pretty special place.
Oh, definitely. And it's exciting because the more you all do and the more you all grow, the more production and things that you all, Tara, you all are doing out there and integrating your own whiskey into the portfolio. And that's exciting, I'm sure, for you and the team as you all create new products for the market. Like, how has it been trying to blend in your all's new make products that you all have put in with, your all's transparency and always partnering with, the source distillate that you've used in the past?
Right. It's really exciting and it's very rewarding to see how our whiskey, presents in the blends that we can use it in. We have, we want to use more of our whiskey going forward, but we're always going to source and use some of ours because our whiskey is pot still and we source the column still. And it's the blend of those two types of whiskeys that help us drive complexity in certain flavor profiles.
Yeah, no, and that's what I like is stay true to who you are. Like a lot of times people like ride in on this horse and then all of a sudden, once they get their stuff, we're going to dismount this horse and we're going to go actually jump on and ride kangaroos now. Like they changed the whole process. And so it's nice to be able to stay true to your roots. And it's a big time for you all because it's celebration time. Like it's Midwinter's Night Dram. It's the Prisoner re-release. You got a lot of cool stuff happening on, and I'd be disserviced if we didn't jump in and talk really about what's happening around the distillery and the products that are coming up, because I'm sure that's what people want to lean into first before we get into the heavy hitting journalism that is the Bourbon Lens.
Right. So from a blend and product perspective, as you mentioned, we just released our Act 11 Midwinter Nights Dram. As far as I've heard, it's been very well received. I've gotten a lot of great feedback on it. Maybe I'm biased because I love it myself, but it always makes me, feel good to hear the positive feedback from all of our customers. The Prisoner Share just released. So this will be our second release of that. It's a rye and bourbon blend that is finished in Prisoner red wine barrels. Very different from the 2022. Different fruit elements on each of those. So fun to taste side by side for anyone who has that luxury. And then coming up next month, we will have our High Country Single Malt. It will be our third national release. It is 100% High West own make. It's a blend of base malt and chocolate tri-malt. And we have some really interesting variables going on with the cooperages. We have a healthy dose of new cooperage in there, a healthy dose of used cooperage. And then we finish portions of that blend in Amontillado sherry, Pedro Jimenez sherry, Olorosa sherry, and Ruby port barrels. So we drove some ultimate complexity. It's my favorite release of High Country so far.
Oh, wow. And to be honest, we might have been like the American single malt lens for a little while because we dove so far into it. And we love the American single malts across the country. And I love Urals. When my first time visiting Park City was for my anniversary a few years ago. And when we got there, it was coming out the next day, and I was chatting with Caitlin. I was like, oh, it'd be great to try it. And all of a sudden a bottle showed up, and it was just a really cool experience. We opened it up in our hotel and got to drink the High Country single malt and post about it right when it released. So I know for me, it's something that carries a lot of weight because it was, such a special moment in, my personal life, but also the whiskey life. And seeing you all continue to innovate from a product perspective is really cool as well. So I'm glad that the High Country is getting a continued remake and continued exploration because the way the rules will be set up in American single malt will allow for that further experimentation, which is really cool.
Yeah, we're really excited about what we have to offer in that category, and we'll continue to offer interesting American single malt offerings.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So Holly, with all these new cool products that are coming out, how does that shape you all from a beverage perspective? I know obviously you use a lot of the double rye and the High West bourbon, which used to be American Prairie for anyone who hasn't seen the update in the brand. What's that like for you to have constant new make opportunities with Midwinter's Night or Prisoner and doing some fun experimental high-end cocktails?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we get to play with it in a variety of ways. Like, for example, this weekend for the Prisoner launch, we did a Distiller's dinner, which is really one of our favorite things to do. Working with Tara's team and also our hospitality team to kind of have this special event for guests. Where we do get to talk about the comparisons of last year to this year. We make a cocktail typically with that new iteration, and then we kind of just walk guests through, this is what it's like on its own, and it's delicious in its own right, and this is how you can utilize it in a cocktail. So that's one way we do it. That's really kind of a special event that we surround it with. And that's very collaborative. We do also do flights here at all of our hospitality locations. And so, I mean, all of these really interesting products give us an opportunity to offer really interesting flights, right? And I think particularly at Wanship at the distillery, they have a whole series of flights that are really interesting and beautiful and let you kind of do a deep dive. And then beyond that, for our winter cocktail menu, we're always excited to have access to these. We're going to have kind of a breakout element of our menu here at the Saloon this year that's going to be high-end cocktails.
Oh, cool.
So we will feature Midwinter's, Prisoner, Share, and also we're going to be using High Country single malt, mostly from last year, but anytime I hear Tara say my favorite iteration of this thing ever, I know it's going to be awesome. So I'm really looking forward to using that in our cocktail program this winter as well.
Yeah.
And, I know we have some stuff coming up in the beginning of the year that Tara will probably talk about as well that we're also excited to utilize. But so we try to just give people as many access points to both our standard, delicious, kind of consistently available portfolio, but also these really unique, delicious things that Tara and Brendan and Isaac and team, do such a great job of developing and making a little different every year. I think, to their credit, it's year 11 of Midwinter's Night's Dram. And, I think it's amazing to me how different they can make them year after year and continue to make them interesting and beautiful in their own way and not necessarily call back to earlier iterations, although those were lovely as well. So, I mean, that really is a compliment to those teams. They do a remarkable job.
Yeah, I think that's what's really cool is no two are alike. And if you're listening to this podcast and you have a bottle of this year's Midwinters or last year's Prisoner Share, and you're like, this Tara name looks familiar, just turn around the bottle. Her name's on the back of it, just so you know. She's kind of a big deal. And so I just thought I'd give you a little shout out. I was like, I've seen your name before. And then I turned the bottle and I was like, aha, I have. And so it is cool to me. this is non-visual, but I will show you all because you all are here. But that's my High West shelf, and that's just acts 7 through 10. I have to displace my Yippee-Ki-Yay, which I'm still sad. I still cry tears that is no longer a release. It's got to be displaced for Act 11. It's got to go up there to continue to build it out. It's all going to be midwinters. Boo Rye will be displaced next year, I'm sure. So I just, for you all, if you all were doubting my High West fandom, it literally sits in my office with me as we sit here and we chat. And I would second that this year's midwinters is really great. As Tara said earlier, if you get a chance to pick one up, you're not going to be disappointed. And everyone's like, oh, it's a big step up from last year or whatever. I thought last year was really good too. Maybe I'm just a fangirl, like I said earlier. I love it. I think this one's just as good as last year, and they're just different complexities. And when you go into it, don't expect it to be the same as last year. I think that's kind of what I always have in my head. Respect each pour for what it is.
Right. With those seasonal blends, we are trying to, celebrate the differences from year to year. So they're all quite, similar in their own right, but there are special nuances that we like to highlight with each type of blend. So that's really fun.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And it just makes me think that I just need to set out a board one night, mix them all up and see if I can guess which act it is. That
sounds like a fun game.
It does. It does. It sounds like a night that I wouldn't soon forget, or I may forget it because I had too many whiskeys. But do it responsibly at your house, where I just have to go upstairs and don't no driving involved.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the last year of Prisoner, right? Our collaboration with Prisoner, and do we?
So with what we know right now, we do have some other exciting things in the think tank, but we're working on those for a release for next year.
No, I think that's cool. And I think that's the beauty of having a partner like Constellation Brands in being able to look at the portfolio and do some cool things with inside of that, which I think is really unique. And they're not short on wine. They're not short on other spirits that you probably could borrow from. And one sits right here in Louisville, Kentucky, with Copper and Kings. And I've been waiting for that collab to pop up. And I've always tell Isaac, when you're sneaking in Louisville, you just let me know and I'll go down. It's a beautiful, beautiful site. So that's a ploy. If you like High West, just urge them. Copper and Kings collaboration. So the crux of this, though, is it's not that you two are awesome people in your own right. You also have paved a way in what has been perceived for so long as a men's industry, right? And women continue to break down barrier after barrier after barrier in the whiskey industry. As far as I'm concerned, women are really kind of pioneering where we're headed as a whiskey generation. Just you look at the icons that are there, like the Peggy No Stevens of the world, and then the people like yourself who are making the next generation of that. How do you all see, this is a really hard transition, but how do you all see the importance of women in the industry and gaining more women at a younger age, even than you all, to come into what can be intimidating of a lot of science now, a lot of, traditionally men dominated area and getting more people interested, more women interested in the spirit culture?
Well, one of the things that we talk about in my relevant teams, and I think one of the things that was a topic when I was hired back in 2016 is that, females, women biologically have different palates than men.
Yeah.
And that's actually true from every single person to every other single person. But, speaking a little bit more broadly, it's beneficial for us to have both men and women on our sensory panels and creating and developing our products so that we can make something that suits everyone. And so I think that, the teams that I'm working with see that and understand that and value that. And so, I was the second woman in operations to work here at High West. And now there's a lot more. I can't count off the top of my head, but we've come a long way. And so it's great to have not only from a sensory perspective, but, even from an idea perspective, to have, both of those types of ideas coming into the picture and coming to the table.
Yeah. What about you, Holly? Like in the beverage environment, which is fast paced, it's got to move. You got to hit numbers too. Like it's definitely the creation side of it, but you're also doing the business side of things. What's that like, for you to see more women be engaged from that experience from your leadership level?
Yeah, I think much like Tara, and I'll just expand on what she said. I think it's really about diversity, right? And like having more diversity around these things. And, particularly in the cocktail space, having people with just different flavor libraries and different cultural experiences, as well as like, obviously the gender differences are huge, right? Because it means that we're able to offer a larger variety of interesting entry points for people to experience whiskey specifically. And I think, a lot of what we think about here is, we want to have something for everybody on the menu, but not everything is for everyone, right? And so we're really, like, I know we spoke briefly, before Tara was able to hop on just before we were recording, about your wife coming in and not really being a whiskey drinker, and she enjoyed a cocktail. And like, that makes us so happy, right? Because like, we like to have like those gateway cocktails that are like, maybe you've had whiskey in a different way for the rest of your life, or you have these associations with it, but let's show it to you in a different light. And I think the more diversity we have behind the bar, whether it's, like I said, cultural or gender or any of those things, the better it is for our guests, right? Because you see yourself reflected back to you. And I think for a long time, the beverage industry was not that for women and not that for people of color as well. Like it was really a lot of like white guys behind the bar, and just like, it was pretty broy. And now I think people see themselves reflected back to them, and they like, I think bars are more approachable. I think it's more comfortable for people to sit alone at a bar, specifically women. And so I think really that's what makes it so great for me. I think just that it's more accessible and inviting for other people. And in terms of numbers, I mean, yes, we do have numbers and stuff like that. And I know Tara on her side has numbers too. I think, in hospitality, I think we really kind of view ourselves as like the experiential marketing element of this brand. And so while numbers are important, it's really about experience. And like the more we can focus on your experience and make it awesome, the numbers will come. Like, I don't think that we're over indexing on our focus on numbers. It's really about like, do you walk away with a warm feeling after you leave these places? Is it memorable? Does it give you like you said, does it make the brand, stick out in your mind more? Do you love it more after coming here? And that's really what we're here for, right? To showcase all of the hard work that Tara and Brendan and Isaac do, and make sure people leave with a warm feeling and experience around it.
Yeah, well, and it's a cold experience most of the time when you're walking out of there. And luckily you have a nice hug around you that keeps you warm as you exit, because it is, the saloon in particular, ski in, ski out, right? Like you can have a great day on the lift right next to the saloon, and that's one hell of an experience right there in itself.
It is awesome. And I mean, we like to say like we're year-round opera here, right? So at the saloon specifically, because for those of you who are kind of mountain oriented and you travel these places, obviously mountain biking and hiking is the summer equivalent of skiing. And so you can bike right to our front door. So we want to be your après adventure stop, certainly, if you come to Park City. And you're right, winter is a cold exit, but we'll give you a warm cider on the way out if you'd like to hang out for a little bit.
For sure.
So yeah, I think we really love incorporating the lifestyle elements of where we live into your experience when you come and visit us. I think that's crucial to who we are and what we believe. Like, we all enjoy where we live, and it's why we live here. In addition to getting to work for an awesome place. So
for sure. And if you've not been to Park City, like for anyone who hasn't, like, it's just a really cool place. Like, there's shops and you can do all that stuff. There's skiing. I don't ski. Big man, fall hard. It's kind of how I feel about that. For everyone who knows me, I'm not a small individual. So I don't, in my mid-30s, I'm not picking up skiing. It's just the way I feel about it. I probably could, but I'm not going to. I just think it's great. You can go and you can hang out and enjoy life, and there's great food. There's a great beer scene. Like, Park City has so much to offer for everyone. And so if you're looking for your next like winter destination, head to Park City. make sure you get a reservation at the saloon, or two, maybe three. Maybe three. Three will cover you. You can go through the whole cocktail menu by then, and you'll have a great time there. So as we continue this conversation, we talked about High West and adding women and creating that culture that allows diversity in that. But what drew you specifically, Holly, I'll start with you, drew you specifically into the cocktail and whiskey environment?
Yeah, it's funny. I've always kind of had a foot in hospitality, even when I was kind of after college and doing other jobs. I kind of always had like a second job in hospitality. But a lot of kind of what pulled me in here is accidental. If I'm 100% candid, I was working for a financial services company, and not to date myself, but kind of the last kind of economic collapse. They decided to consolidate and move into a hub and spoke model. And so all of our operations were moving to Arizona, and Arizona's lovely, but I am a mountain girl through and through. And I just couldn't imagine parting with Park City and kind of a mountain lifestyle. So hospitality is obviously the other industry here. And so I thought I was just going to like work behind a bar for a couple of years and, maybe figure out my next step and what I want to be when I grow up. But it turns out this is what I want to be when I grow up. And so I got to stumble into High West through that path. High West had kind of just opened maybe like 6 to 10 months before I came over from another bar that was here in town. And so, it kind of just getting to kind of work on this beverage program and a craft program and getting to work in the industry in a very kind of deliberate way, as opposed to just kind of, vodka tonics, whiskey sodas, things like that. And kind of like going this direction, where it's very much about combining flavors and having these experiences for people really resonated with me. And so it stuck, I guess, is the short answer.
Hey, find something you're passionate about and fall in love with it. Like there's, a saying, I think everyone says it, but like, the moment that you like actually have to do your job or you feel like it's work, that's when you should quit. So as long as it doesn't feel that way, it seems like you're pretty excited about where you are. So keep on doing what you're doing, because it's not work. It's who you are. It's part of who you are.
Yeah, I feel lucky for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So Tara, you're more on the production, the science side of things, right? So did your background bring you into whiskey, or were you kind of led into this from a variety of different like pools to get you to High West?
So I like to think that my 6-year-old self had some insight as to what I wanted to be when I grew up. Because as a child, I used to make what I called perfumes, and I would go into the kitchen and I would create blends of different ingredients. I named them all after the Great Lakes because I thought that was a magical place. Growing up in SoCal and have never been out there. But that ended up leading into a science degree, which I did during college. And then I ended up living in Napa Valley at some point and didn't know what I was going to do there. I had no idea that there was anything, any science behind the winemaking side of it. They don't teach you that in college. They want you to go into pharmaceuticals or medical school as a science major. They don't tell you can go make alcohol. But ended up working for an analytical lab in Napa Valley, and then branched out to work for some independent wineries as an enologist. And so at that point in time, I was loving working in the wine industry, but my husband and I wanted to move back to the mountains. We love the mountains. We're also mountain people, and ended up finding the opportunity at High West and thought it was a natural progression to move into whiskey, which I appreciated that as well. But I can't say that I was quite the connoisseur of whiskey at the time. I remember my first sensory with Brendan, and if we're being 100% honest here, I had only shot whiskey or drank it in cocktails before that sensory. And so I was just thinking, I hope I could taste this whiskey without gagging. And it went fine. But
yeah, hopefully it wasn't a barrel proof day. It was a cut sample, down to like 30% where you could really tolerate it.
It all worked out.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. And there's so much science. And I was actually, it's funny you say it's about perfume. I was looking at my wife and I have like our cologne and perfume sitting on like a little tray in our room. And I was like, did you know that perfume's kind of a byproduct of whiskey? And she's like, you're full of crap. And I'm like, no, like it is. Like if there's a bad batch of whiskey, they'll distill that clean and then they'll start adding, flavors and aromas to it to like get you to the scent that you need. And we just were at your partner from a sourcing perspective, and they were talking about how much, per year they kind of run off of that, of their tails and their heads cuts, and they use that for perfumes. It's like there's so much whiskey in the world, and you don't realize where all that whiskey actually sits, which is pretty cool.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And so my question is, which Great Lake smelled the best?
So I liked Lake Erie, and that one was a blend of apple cider vinegar, vanilla extract, butterscotch chips, and a layer of flour at the bottom.
Oh, it sounds like it would smell good.
Of course, naturally, right?
Oh, I mean, I can't tell you that it wouldn't. I'm not going to recreate it, so I'm just going to go with it. Probably smelled good. Yeah, my science background is I have a beaker to like blend my own whiskey when I'm bored. That's about as sciencey as I get. And so like with all of this like momentum around High West and around, whiskey in general and women in whiskey, like, do you all see this as a movement, a continual growth pattern for more and more women to engage in this? Or do you see as you have to continue to recruit like-minded people like yourself or other women to get excited about whiskey? Do you see that as there's a barrier to entry, or do you see there's an opportunity for that glass wall to continue to be broken for people to be engaged in hospitality and whiskey creation and sensory? What do y'all think about that?
I think from my perspective on the operations side that, our teams on the operations are already, encouraging women to join all of our teams, whether it's, the distilling team or the warehousing team or the bottling team or the quality team. So I feel like we have, some good representation. And when we have positions available, we do have a lot of women applicants as well. So I feel like the barrier to entry is maybe less than it was even 5 years ago, because we do see so many more female applicants for these types of positions. And I think that being in a company like High West, part of Constellation, I don't know if it's totally accurate, but I feel like we're ahead of the game and trying to bring in diversity and women. So I guess I see us in a good place. There's always room for improvement, of course, but we want a good balance of all types of people on our teams.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about you, Holly?
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think we do have a lot of women in really key roles. I think but to your question, I think it's both and, right? Like, yes, there is already a lot of progress. And to Tara's point, there's opportunity for improvement. I think it's really about further recruiting for people, probably in decision-making roles that are maybe above us and towards like the top of the tip of the spear, so to speak. For all of these brands that are kind of making the decisions that filter down. I think that's going to be important, right? But I think, the ball is rolling and I think it'll continue to roll. And I think to Tara's point, I think we want it to be diverse and, we want it to be men and women and I think and lots of different people represented. So I think that's key to, whiskey's evolution going forward, but also to hospitality wherever you go. I think that's very important. So.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And advancement in the workplace is really, really interesting. And there's some really cool experiences for women to get involved with. I don't know if you all have done this, but Bourbon Women is a great avenue if you are listening to this podcast and you are a woman, and there's multiple chapters across the country. Peggy Stevens sits on the board and a variety of others. Susan Riegler's on that. There's just a lot of great media folks and women that are in the whiskey industry that have been involved with it. Have you all done anything with Bourbon Women in the past?
I have not done anything directly. I am aware of the organization, and I have been fortunate enough to have a great conversation with Peggy Stevens and learn from her and gain advice from her. But I have not been able to attend any chapter events.
For sure. Well, I would say good chance to come to Louisville. Just come hang out. It's great. I always promote my city. I've talked about Park City a lot, but come to Louisville. There's a lot of bourbon here. Shocking, I know, but there's a lot of opportunity to come enjoy the old brown water here in Louisville, Kentucky. And I think it's really cool to see the growth and expansion of what those things have done. Like we just interviewed Heather Green from Milam and Green and talked about her growth and experience as well, from a whiskey writer to a whiskey maker. Like, it's just so cool how every woman have all the women in the whiskey industry have paved their own path. It's all been unique. It's never been the same. And that's what I would continue to charge to you all from my point of view is keep doing what you're doing, because people are noticing. People want to be a part of the conversation with High West, because you all are producing great products and a great experience at the saloon. And that's my point of view. I don't care who's making it. I just know that you all are doing it pretty damn good. So keep doing what you're doing. I think people continue to see that it's not just granddaddy's drink anymore. And it's for everyone. It's allowing everyone to have those conversations and have a great dram, no pun intended, to midwinters as I take a sip here that we have in front of us. So to kind of like, I'm not going to say put a bow on it, but put a bow on it. What's your all's hopes and dreams for yourselves and for High West over the next I don't know, couple months? Like, what do you see happening, and how do you continue to get people excited and engaged with High West over the new season, right? Because it's ski season out in Park City. It's big time for you all. And then, you all are in big release season and then planning for the future down there in Wanship. What keeps you all engaged and keeps you all excited about what's next in the High West scene?
So one of the things that we're very excited about, and this is also a plug for something that's upcoming and something that we've been working on for a number of months here at High West, is that we will be releasing our first bottled and bond rye whiskey in early next year. And so, Isaac Winter, our distilling manager, and Brendan Coyle, our master distiller, and I have spent time over the last maybe 6 months now going through the inventory, deciding, specifically which season we wanted to highlight in this blend. Which age, what we're going to do for this. And so we're very excited to be releasing something under the qualifications of bottled and bond, but also to have, another product out there that is 100% High West own make.
Yeah.
Getting to use more and more of our own distillate as it comes to age is very exciting. And it's, something that's always new. Right now we have some bourbon that's aging that we haven't used for anything yet, but here in the next year or two, we're going to start looking at what we can do with that. So, there's always a lot to look at from a product perspective of how we're incorporating our High West spirits and, what that future looks like. And, it's exciting and it's fun.
Yeah, it is exciting. And also, double rye, I believe, is 90-ish proof, 92. I don't know. Yeah. So getting that up in proof a little bit, seeing the difference, and the pot still rye, probably a different mash bill than the 95.5. And so that'll be fun just to taste the difference. And that gets me excited. And it's so fun because it allows you to still be crafty. Like, it allows this big brand to still feel craft. And I feel like the bottled and bond designation allows you to do a lot of crafty things that not everyone gets to do. So that's pretty cool.
Right. And it's so interesting too, to go back, and when you look at kind of the picture of the distillery from the perspective of the season and looking at what was coming out of the distillery, how are we, doing our mash and our yeast, and, what was the setup of the still at the time. And, there's just a lot of interesting things that we can look at how, like, what crafted that spirit in that way, into the aging process, and how we work with it on the back end when it comes out of the barrel too.
For sure. What about you, Holly? Right, you all are creating things every season. I feel like every time I go out there, there's a different cocktail list. So constant curation is definitely at the name of the game in the hospitality industry. But what keeps you excited and keeps you going in this hospitality, which can be a little bit of a burnout? Like it's a hard industry to be a part of.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing that reflected in lots of places, right? Where like Michelin star restaurants are closing, bars that we know and love kind of didn't necessarily survive COVID, and I think we're seeing a bigger push towards wellness. And historically, hospitality hasn't been great at wellness, right? So I think we do try to promote it here, and again, like it's about weaving lifestyle into what we do, right? Even for our staff, for all of us. I mean, we try not to have our bartenders work more than 4 shifts a week. We try to keep them engaged and light. And I think that leads to a better guest experience. So we do make every effort to make sure that, people aren't burning out.
Yeah.
And, on some of that's on us and some of that's on them. Right. But we do try to encourage, breaks and things like that. And living in a town like this, I think there are natural breaks, right? There are seasonal breaks. So we're fortunate to have that. But in terms of what keeps me excited, we're right in the middle of Bar Lab. And for people who know the Bar Lab process here, and for those who don't, essentially everyone who works on our bar team at all 3 of our locations come with ideas to workshop for the winter menu. So we're in the middle of that. And in terms of having something for everyone, there's a little bit of each member of our staff reflected back in our menu. And I think that's huge and makes it more inviting for our guests. I think the Protect the West initiative is something that we're all super stoked on. I think for those who don't know, we're making $1 million worth of donations to 3 charities over the course of the next 3 years. And that's Protect Our Winners, the American Prairie Foundation, which you may know from our American Prairie Bourbon, and also the Wildland Firefighter Foundation. And I think on some level, there's this recognition from all of us in the West that, if we don't have water and we don't have grain, this is, we're not going to be able to continue doing what we do. And I think for those of us who live in the West and love the West, like Tara and I, it's not just about winter. Winters actually inform our summers. And like we both fly fish. Tara's husband is a guide. So I think, understanding kind of that cycle and making sure that we're good stewards of our environment is huge for all of us. And I'm stoked about that. And I'm excited to see our company get behind it. And finally, I mean, in terms of how people can find us and other ways to get excited about High West, beyond coming to see us in Park City, which we would love, or Wanship, there's also the Whiskey Train, which has stops throughout the nation. And we'll be in a lot of resorts that aren't in here in Utah this year. So you'll find us doing a lot of stuff in California this year. And so, I mean, definitely make sure to come and say hi.
Yeah.
Do a little app situation with us.
Oh, for sure. And the Whiskey Train came to Louisville a couple years back for Bourbon and Beyond.
Yeah, it's fun. It's like it's a really fun experience. And I think, we work towards elevating that experience all the time. So we're always excited, and I'm excited to join it when I can.
Yeah.
But I think people are always excited to see it.
So I have one last question for you from a hospitality side. So I'm looking at the menu from 2 years ago. I'm not going to ask you to recall it at all.
Good.
But from a creation perspective, what is do you lean from a cocktail? Do you lean towards the rye portfolio or the bourbon portfolio to make a cocktail? And then I'll ask my question from there.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, personally, I think we're a rye house. And I think we do make bourbon and it's delicious, but I think of us as a rye house. And I think that our guests generally think of us that way. And so we do lean into the rye, I think, more than anything. But I'll also say, the legislation in Utah kind of allows for this gray area where we do a lot of split-based cocktails. So in order to get you to a 2.5 ounce in terms of booze only cocktail, it requires us to split the base. And we often split the base with things that people don't necessarily that aren't front of mind for people, right? Copper and Kings has made it in there with their apple brandy for sure. We do a lot with them. We do a lot with tequila. Tara, Isaac, and Brendan were kind enough to make us an awesome gin that we actually do a lot of split-based things with. And so we're always kind of playing in that space where we get you the best cocktail we can in terms of flavor profile, but also the most alcohol we can get you, because we want to disabuse people of this notion that it's hard to drink in Utah.
Yeah. No, that's true. I believe I had the Comanche when I was there, which is a split base with the rye and the Macallan. That is, I like what you're talking there, because there is a weird thing. Like, there are some weird liquor rules. I think we all know that in Utah. But when you go to High West, trust me, you get to drink like you would be normally drinking. It is fine. It is all great. So with that said, you lean into rye. What would be your cocktail that you would create at home with High West? What would be the cocktail that you would help create?
Yeah. There are a few places to go. Like most bartenders who spend a lot of time behind a bar, we are very much pour ourselves just a nice neat pour at home. So yeah. I do enjoy just a lovely neat pour. I do love a good old fashioned or a Boulevardier. And so I think those are two platforms that are endlessly malleable, right? So if you kind of just think of them as like a jumping off point, I think, with an old fashioned, there are a ton of things you can do with syrup. There are also a ton of things you can do with the alcohol, like fat washing is something that we really love to do, infusions, things like that. So I think when you kind of just think of those platforms and how you want to, if you are creating at home, I think it's best to think in terms of platforms and how you can alter platforms. I do also love the combination of coffee and whiskey. So hot or cold. And so I'll play with those flavors a lot too at home.
I think one of the only times I've ever drank a full cup of coffee was at High West. I don't drink coffee at all. Zero. Like, persona non grata. Like, don't do it. Robbie, one of the bartenders, made me the warm drink, and I was like, I trust you. I'm going to trust you because you're giving me this drink. And I drank it. It was good. I got past the bitterness of the coffee. That's all. That was the big overcome for me. Got to get past the bitterness.
Well, Tara is also not a coffee drinker. So anytime she has a coffee drink and she's like, that's good, I'm like, we did it.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. So Tara, I'll ask you this, so she said that you all are a rye house and you have some cool stuff coming up. Would you all, this is like asking your favorite child, but what's been kind of one of your favorite projects that you've been able to help, build and put out into the marketplace? I'll ask it better that way versus saying, pick one of your favorite High West products. Like, what's one of your favorite projects you've been able to work on?
That's a tough question. And I have done a lot. I have, contributed to a lot of the projects or, all of our plans along the way. I guess one of the more recent ones that I really enjoyed and I was very excited about the outcome was the new cask collection offering. We created a new to world blend of a few different bourbons. Some of them were opportunistically purchased from outside of MGP. And we provided that in a few different offerings. The first one was at cask strength, which that came out at around 117, maybe 0.54, I think. But it was 117 something proof. And it sips like maybe it's 100 proof tops. It's totally approachable. And then we took that blend and finished it in some different barrels. We had some Cabernet Sauvignon from within the Constellation portfolio, some Chardonnay, and some rum as well from Barbados. And so I really enjoyed that first one. So that blend changes every year, but I particularly enjoyed that blend. And sometimes it's always an adventure getting into sensory because as the whiskeys continue to age, I have this library in my head of knowing, what we have and how it works in blends typically. This particular one, I don't like to see it over 5% in a blend, but as it ages, maybe that turns to 4% or, in certain capacities. And so, no matter what project that we're working on, I love seeing how the whiskey is evolving and how it changes a little bit because while I have this base knowledge, I'm always learning something as we go to create a new blend. So every experience is exciting and new. Oh, no,
I think that's great. And we haven't even talked about this, but you could go down a deep, dark rabbit hole of the private selects High West double rise and bourbons. They're great. I had I'm going to say Banyuls because I'm Kentuckian, but that's how it read phonetically to me. And that was phenomenal. Like, it was snowing and I just shut my computer down and I just looked at it snow in Kentucky. It doesn't do that all that often. And I think I drank half a bottle, just enjoying the snow. I had my window open. It was really weird, just letting the breeze come in. And I just enjoyed that one so much because it was so unique and a ton of flavor. And I have a tequila finish and a rum finish, and the Private Select is a ton of fun. If you haven't gotten into the High West Private Selects, do it because it's a fun experience.
Yeah, those are fun to get all the different finishes and all the different barrels from year to year.
Yeah.
I really enjoy those.
Yeah, definitely. Well, now we're going to put a bow on it. We're going to wrap this episode up because it's been a lot of fun. We've covered a lot of ground. And like I told Isaac and Brendan before you all as well, this doesn't mean it's the last one because you all are continuing to grow. You're continuing to do new things. And we always love to have you all be a part of our episodes because there's always something new coming out of Park City and Wanship, Utah. So with that being said, who of the two of you, I guess I'll leave it to Holly since you're in the hospitality, where can people find out more about High West and get connected to you all throughout the year?
Yeah, you bet. Highwest.com, right? That's a great place to see what's going on. If you could become part of our whiskey club, which you can sign up for on our website, that's a great way to get newsletters that come directly to you about all the interesting things that Tara, Isaac, and Brendan are putting out. And then, I would be remiss if I didn't say social media, right? Our Instagram account at Drink High West. That's a great place to find out what's new, what's going on. Additionally, it's a great place to find out where the whiskey train is. There's a little sub-site on our website about where the whiskey train will be. So if you're kind of looking for dates and where it's coming near you, that's a great place to see us. Tara, did I miss anything?
I think you did a pretty good job there. I can't think of anything else you didn't say.
Okay.
Yeah. What I will say, my personal thing, if you are in one of the shipping states, make sure you sign up for the Saloon Society. If you have that means to do so, it's a great opportunity to try all of these great whiskeys that Tara and team are putting out. And I know they're back ordered, so you won't get in right away, but it's a great opportunity. And I couldn't remember, I can't find it on here, but there was a test at one point that I had to take to pass to get into something, maybe a newsletter or something like that originally. Do you all remember that?
I don't.
Okay. There was a test. I'll send you the podcast. I can't find it on here, but there was one point in time, there was a test to get into, I don't know, something along the way. And it was really cool. But that looks like it's now gone. But just go enjoy High West. Just go enjoy it. Have fun with it. It's great to be a part of the High West community and protecting the West like they are doing themselves. So I just want to say thank you all for joining this episode of the Bourbon Lens. And thank you everybody for listening. We truly appreciate it. If you want to follow along with us, go over to Instagram, X, and Facebook at Bourbon Lens. And if you want to join our growing Patreon community, go over to patreon.com/Bourbon Lens. We'd love to have you there. And last but not least, go to your favorite podcast listening app and make sure you're hitting subscribe. We'd love to have you listen to us every week and make sure you hear this episode coming up. And until next time, cheers.
Thanks, Jake.
Thank you.